Okay.
In 1775, Alcatraz Island was named by the Spanish La Isla de Alcatraces, which means the island of pelicans. In the 1850s, it served as a military base and became home to the first operational lighthouse on the West Coast. From the late 1850s to 1933, it served as a military prison. Then much later, in 1969, for almost 2 years, it was occupied by a group of Native American activists who claimed the land for all Indian tribes and wanted to build a university and museum on the island. President Richard Nixon ordered the activists removed in 1971. The island became part of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area in 1972 and was open to the public the following year. Alcatraz Island is most famous for the time it was a federal prison. From 1934 to 1963, it housed some of the most dangerous felons of the time, leading to one of the bloodiest escape attempts in California history. The U.S. Justice Department acquired Alcatraz Island in 1933 from the Army, intending to house a criminal population too difficult and dangerous for any other penitentiary. Alcatraz Island was unescapable with strict rules and severe punishments. The maximum security prison officially opened on July 1st of 1934. It housed such notorious inmates as Al Scarface Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, Alvin Creepy Carpus, and Robert Birdman of Alcatraz Stroud. No inmate ever successfully escaped from Alcatraz, although there were 14 attempts involving 36 inmates, where 23 were captured, 6 were shot and killed, 2 drowned, and 5 went missing and were presumed drowned. The most famous escape attempt resulted in a battle that began on May 2nd of 1946 and continued until May 4th, in which 6 prisoners overpowered cell house officers in the gun gallery and were able to gain access to guns, but were unable to gain access to keys to leave the prison. The rioting inmates killed 2 correctional officers and injured 18 others. The Marines were called in to assist. The battle ended with the deaths of 3 inmates and the trial of 3 others. 2 of the 3 received the death penalty. Here's a newspaper from the following morning after the attack of Alcatraz. This is how San Francisco learned what was going on in their bay. This is 13 hours after the siege began. All the circles, and over here are guards that are shooting inside the prison, and guards are posted outside. It all began at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on May the 2nd, where Bernard P. Coy and Joseph Paul Kretzer took control of the gun gallery. The gunfire between rioting inmates and guards on Alcatraz Island lasted through the night and into the morning, when the people of San Francisco were made aware of the battle raging in their bay. Many watched from the marina. At the point that this newspaper came out, guards had forced the inmates into a cell block further back and were able to free 8 of their comrades who were still being held as hostages. All were injured from being shot and struck by their captors. Many of the guards played dead to avoid being murdered during their captivity. The battle continued until the following day, when guards and military regained control of the prison. Alcatraz Penitentiary closed its doors in 1963, and all of the inmates were sent to other penitentiaries throughout the United States. The cost was too great to keep it operational. Nothing could grow on Alcatraz Island, so they were having to send in all the food and everything for the inmates to eat. And it was just costing too much money. And then the sea salty air was causing the buildings to crumble. So they shut their doors. Despite the history of blood, violence, and imprisonment that occurred over the years, Alcatraz became a place of peace and hopefulness to the Native Americans in 1969. But for almost 2 years before being forced out to turn the island into a recreational park open to the public for tours. Tours today start at $26 and go up from there. I've taken the tour and I loved experiencing the beauty, history, and infamy of Alcatraz Island in the San Francisco Bay. A guest is free to walk through the prison, through the cells, and learn of its former residents and see where all the violence once took place.
Yay!